Welcome back here with us on Overdrive, where the Toyota Fortuner has been a preferred SUV choice by many SUV lovers over the years. But now for 2021, there is a new variant that has come into the market, but it is a bit more polished and a bit more premium. Toyota is calling it the Toyota Fortuner Legender. Rohit has all the details.
There's no doubt that the Toyota Fortuner is a very capable SUV. But when we reviewed the model, the current generation model back in 2016 upon its launch, we asked you one very important question. Despite what its capabilities are, would you really take that vehicle down into the jungles? Would you take it down into the wild outdoors? Would you mind scratching that expensive paint? Clearly, most of you wouldn't. In fact, if anything, people wanted a Fortuner that was a bit more prim and proper. And that is the reason we have this, the new Fortuner Legender. If you want 4x4 capabilities and the boot styling that one associates with the Fortuner, you can save a few and settle for the regular Fortuner 4x4. The Legender is the fashionable alternative, wearing more refined styling cues that are inspired from Lexus. The egg-shaped nose, for example, has hints of the Lexus spindle grille. It is complemented by a sophisticated 4-pot headlamp arrangement and what Toyota likes to call a waterfall design for the daytime running lights. The LED headlamps have an exceptionally good spread and throw and are easily the best in the segment. The vertical fog lamp housings enhance the visual sense of height for this already tall SUV, while the turn blinkers move to the far corners of the bumper and get a sequential blink pattern similar to some luxury cars. And it does look good. There's no difference in the dimensions between the Fortuner and the Legender, but the side profile looks sportier on the latter thanks to the design of the wheels. Toyota loves market research and responding to their results, and consequently the Legender is only available in a pearl white with a matte black roof to go with it. This black roof treatment is achieved with a wrap and not with paint, and that shows with these inconsistent edges that you see around the roof. I wanted a cleaner look, something that looked a little more expensive at this particular price point, especially since this has come from the factory. The tail of the Legender differentiates itself with creases on the rear bumper that rise up from the fog lamps to again accentuate the height of this car. In fact, contrary to expectations and also to the segment norms, there is a minimal use of chrome on this car. It's not too much bling, and I think what they've achieved with the overall design, it looks quite classy. There's an air of sophistication to the Legender's design. While the exterior has allowed the Toyota designers to sculpt two distinct faces for the Fortuner, the interior doesn't allow so much leeway. So while the flow of the dashboard and the layout of various elements is similar between the two cars, and also the outgoing model for that matter, the Legender goes with a refreshingly new black and maroon scheme for the upholstery. It gets a contrasting white ambient lighting around the infotainment and the instrumentation, which looks quite nice. The lack of a fat list of features or creature comforts worthy enough for this price tag was one of the complaints that we had about the Fortuner, and that has been addressed to an extent with this midlife makeover. Now, there is basic connected tech which lets you have geo-fencing or vehicle tracking, the touchscreen infotainment system, the layout has been revised a bit, it feels a little bit more slick, you have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and air conditioning for all three rows was never really a concern. It was always very good with the Fortuner, but now, finally, there are ventilated seats this time around, though only for the front. A 360-degree camera ought to have been given by now, but all you get is a reversing camera with fixed guidelines and an extra reversing sensor at the rear over the regular Fortuner. There's not much change to the seating. The third row of seats is still good enough only for kids, so I'm not going to attempt getting in there. You have to sit in a knees up position if you're an adult. And some of you wish to have captain seats in the second row. You do not get that here. But if you ask me, it's not that big a concern because this continues to be very comfortable. I think this works just as well without really compromising on the comfort or the versatility of it. So I think I quite like it. In fact, long distance comfort has always been the forte for the Fortuner, and that continues with the Legender as well. You get a good amount of knee room, you get good foot space. Headroom is a bit compromised for taller passengers, but otherwise the comfort is really, really good. The Legender doesn't get any ADAS functions either. It secures the cabin with 7 airbags and the usual kit of electronic aids that you expect at this price point. Well, the Legender only comes with the option of a diesel engine. This is the updated 2.8-litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel. Now, it settles into an idling RPM of about 850 RPM. But the first thing that you will notice on this engine is how much more muted it is as compared to the outgoing car. The outgoing car, it started with a bit of a rumble, there was a bit of a clatter that you could hear inside the cabin. All of that has been muted quite nicely with this updated powertrain. Now you will hear that diesel clatter, but that's only past the 2800 RPM mark. You'll also feel a nice surge of power and torque coming in at about 2500 RPM, which is very much like the older engine. Now, of course, this is an updated version of the older engine. This is not an all-new engine. But in the Legender, you can only have this engine with the 6-speed automatic transmission, which means it also gets the higher state of tune that this engine is now available in. And that is 204 PS and 500 Newton meters. It may seem like a marginal bump in power and torque, but it makes for quicker acceleration of the mark, easier overtaking capabilities, and better drivability around mountain roads. The 0 to 100 timing for the Legender is also significantly quicker than the Fortuner 4x4 automatic that we tested in the past. I think that also means that the Legender is the quickest production spec Fortuner that you can buy in India at the moment. Because of course there is the Fortuner 4x4 with its 4-wheel drivetrain. It will have better grip off the line, it will have cleaner starts, but then the off-roading hardware makes it 125 kilos heavier than the Legender, and that compromises or reduces its power to weight ratio. Also, the gearbox, it's not the quickest of the lot. It's certainly not the quickest we've tested, but once you get used to the weight upshifts, the weight downshifts in the various driving modes, it's very easy to plan overtakes, so that's no problem at all. Now, the only thing that I've noticed is that the engine braking is not as strong. It almost feels like it's going into a coasting mode every time you get off the throttle, though it doesn't have a coasting function. So that is something that you sort of need to get used to. That said, whether you're driving alone or with a full house, whether you're driving in the city or at highway speeds, the brakes are actually quite good. The brake pedal feel is nice and progressive. The brake pedal isn't very long, the pedal travel isn't very long, but it's very easy to get used to. So it's very confidence inspiring in that sense, which I think is a very important thing for a car of this size and weight. But it is a body-on-frame giant after all, and maneuvering the Legender around tight switchbacks or through narrow spaces still needs quite a bit of effort at the wheel. The rigidity of the chassis continues to impress with its high-speed stability and its low and high-speed ride quality. It's nice and supple, literally flattens all the potholes that the Indian roads have to throw at it, and that is one of the biggest appeals of the Fortuner, right? Giving you that sense of invincibility when you're driving it in the Indian conditions. Now, the Fortuner also comes with 3 driving modes, and that is common to the automatic transmission. So you get it in the Fortuner as well as the Legender. You get 3 driving modes, which is Eco, Normal and Sport. And these will not only alter the gearbox and throttle responses, they'll also add a bit of weight to the steering as you progress through these modes. However, the difference between these modes, both in terms of the powertrain response as well as the steering, it's very marginal and it's very hard to notice. It is a Fortuner after all, so its capability away from the tarmac is pretty good even without the fancy off-roading hardware. So trips to the farm and mild trails are still very much doable. But if scaling mountains, bashing rocks and descending to riverbeds is your idea of adventure touring with this car, you're better off with the Fortuner 4x4. Now, to sum it up, the powertrain and its performance and the bright quality that this platform has to offer is common to the Fortuner and the Legender. But I think the Fortuner with its 4x4 drivetrain or its off-road capabilities offers a lot more versatility and offers a lot more value as well. What you're essentially paying for with the Legender is for the flamboyant styling and a few features inside the cabin. Now, there's nothing life-changing about it, but then you can't even ignore the fact that the Legender does look very nice. It looks very polished, it looks prim and proper, and that Lexus inspiration really works. And it works in giving this car or making this a lot stronger at doing that one thing that the Fortuner does very well, and that is casting a very powerful image of you, one that massages your ego.
The 2021 Toyota Fortuner packs in plenty of off-road features as well. We are keen to bring you that review. We're working on that, so ensure that you keep your notifications on so that you know when we publish that review as well. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up on the other side, we'll acquaint you with Honda